Princess Zara stood at the massive window of her palace, watching three moons rise over the crystal cities of Andromeda Prime. The purple and silver towers stretched toward the stars, glowing with the soft light that powered their entire world. She pressed her hand against the cool glass and sighed. Tomorrow would change everything. "You don't have to do this," her father said from behind her. King Altair walked slowly across the marble floor, his blue robes flowing like water. Even though he was the most powerful ruler in 3 galaxies, tonight he looked tired and worried. Zara turned to face him. Her golden eyes sparkled with determination. "Yes, I do. The mining colonies are angry, and they have every right to be. We've ignored them for too long." The king shook his head. 3 ambassadors have already disappeared trying to make peace with them. The Outer Rim is dangerous. Those miners don't follow our rules or respect our ways. Maybe that's exactly why. "I need to go," Zara said. She walked to her father and took his hands. "I'm not just another ambassador. I'm your daughter. They'll listen to me." King Altair looked into his daughter's eyes and saw the same stubborn spirit that had made her mother a legendary queen. "You have your mother's heart. That both terrifies and amazes me." The next morning, Zara stood in the royal council chamber surrounded by her advisors. The room was filled with floating holographic maps showing the troubled regions where the mining colonies had declared independence. Red dots marked areas where fighting had broken out. "Princess, the situation is getting worse every day," said Chancellor Vex, an elderly man with silver hair and worried eyes. "The miners are destroying our supply ships and refusing to send us the crystals we need for our cities." Another advisor stepped forward. "We should send our battle fleet and force them to obey. They're rebels and criminals." Zara raised her hand. "For silence. That's exactly the kind of thinking that created this mess. We treated them like servants instead of partners. Now they're fighting back." She touched the holographic map, and it zoomed in on the neutral zone, a dangerous area of space where no laws existed. "The meeting is set for Station Epsilon. It's the only place both sides agreed to meet. That station is crawling with pirates and smugglers." Chancellor Vex protested. "It's no place for royalty, which is exactly why it's perfect." Zara replied, "I'm going there as a diplomat, not a princess hiding behind guards and weapons. I want to show them we trust them enough to meet on neutral ground." The advisors looked at each other nervously. King Altair entered the chamber just as they were, shaking their heads in disagreement. "Father, tell them this is the right way," Zara said. The king was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice heavy with ancient wisdom. "There are old stories, older than our kingdom, that speak of times like these, when our people face their greatest challenges. The stars themselves will guide us toward unity." He walked to an ancient book floating in a beam of light. Its pages were made of crystallized starlight, and the words glowed as he read them aloud. "When two hearts from different worlds find each other, when warrior meets princess under foreign stars, the divided shall become whole, and peace shall reign among the scattered children of the cosmos." The advisors looked confused, but Zara felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had always been drawn to the old prophecies, even though most people thought they were just stories. "What does that mean?" she asked. "I don't know," her father admitted. "But I do know that you have gifts that go beyond diplomacy. Your mother could sense things others couldn't. You have that same ability." It was true. Ever since she was little, Zara could feel emotions and intentions from people around her. Sometimes she even saw brief glimpses of future events in her dreams. The royal family had always had these abilities, but they kept them secret. "Promise me you'll be careful," King Altair said, "and promise me you'll trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, come home immediately." Zara nodded and hugged her father. "I promise." 3 hours later, she stood in the docking bay next to her sleek silver ship. Instead of the usual royal escort of 20 armed vessels, she was taking only one small security ship. Her personal guard, Captain Rax, wasn't happy about it. "Princess, this goes against every security protocol we have," he said, adjusting his blue uniform nervously. "At least let us bring more weapons." "No," Zara said firmly. We're going there to make peace, not to threaten anyone. The smaller our force, the more they'll trust us." As her ship lifted off from the palace landing pad, Zara looked down at her beautiful home world one last time. The crystal cities sparkled like jewels against the purple landscape. She hoped she would see them again. The journey to the neutral zone took days. As they traveled farther from Andromeda Prime, space became darker and more dangerous. They passed through asteroid fields where pirates hid and abandoned space stations that had been destroyed in ancient wars. On the second day, their ship's sensors picked up something strange. "Princess, we're being followed," Captain Rax reported. From the pilot's seat, "There's a ship about 2 hours behind us. It's trying to stay hidden, but our sensors are too advanced." Zara closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, trying to sense whoever was following them. She felt something unusual, something that made her heart beat faster. It wasn't fear exactly, but it wasn't comfort either. It was like sensing a storm approaching, powerful and dangerous, but somehow necessary. "Should we change course?" Captain Rax asked. "No," Zara said, opening her eyes. "Whatever's following us, I think we're meant to meet it. Keep going towards Station Epsilon." As they approached the neutral zone, Zara could see why her advisors had been worried. This part of space was filled with old battleships, floating debris, and stations that looked like they had been built from spare parts. Everything here was rough, dangerous, and lawless. Station Epsilon appeared on their screens like a giant metal spider floating in the darkness. Ships of all sizes were docked to its arms, from tiny smuggler vessels to massive cargo haulers. None of them looked friendly. "Welcome to the edge of civilization," Captain Rax muttered as they requested permission to dock. Zara felt her heart racing, but not from fear. Something important was about to happen. She could feel it in the very atoms of her being. The old prophecy echoed in her mind: when warrior meets princess under foreign stars. She had no idea that at that very moment, in the dark corridors of Station Epsilon, a mysterious fighter was preparing for a battle that would change both their lives forever. She had no way of knowing that the ship following them carried someone whose destiny was tied to hers by forces older than their civilizations. All she knew was that tomorrow, everything would be different, and somehow, despite all the danger ahead, that thought filled her with hope instead of fear. Station Epsilon was nothing like the clean, beautiful cities of Andromeda Prime. The moment Zara stepped off her ship, she was hit with the smell of engine fuel, unwashed bodies, and something that might have been alien food cooking somewhere. In the distance, the corridors were dimly lit, crowded with beings from dozens of different worlds, all looking like they had something to hide. "Stay close, Princess," Captain Rax whispered, his hand resting on his weapon. "I don't like the way people are staring at us." Zara looked around and realized he was right. Even though she was dressed in simple traveling clothes instead of royal robes, something about her still screamed nobility. Maybe it was the way she walked, or the quality of her boots, or just the fact that she didn't look terrified like most first-time visitors to this place. They made their way through the winding corridors toward the meeting hall where the mining colony representatives were waiting. Zara tried to take in everything around her. She saw traders selling strange glowing crystals, mechanics repairing ship parts with tools that sparked and hissed, and children who looked like they had never seen sunlight. These people aren't criminals, she thought to herself. They're just trying to survive. Suddenly, her psychic senses started tingling. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Captain," she said quietly, "we need to move faster." But it was too late. A group of rough-looking men stepped out from behind a cargo container, blocking their path. Their leader was a tall, scarred alien with 4 arms and eyes like black holes. Well, he said with a voice like grinding metal. "Look what we have here. A pretty little princess, far from home." Captain Rax immediately drew his weapon, but found himself surrounded. At least a dozen pirates had appeared from hidden spots throughout the corridor. Other travelers quickly disappeared into side passages, not wanting any part of whatever was about to happen. "What do you want?" Zara asked, surprised by how calm her own voice sounded. The pirate leader laughed. "What do we want? We want the biggest ransom in galactic history. King Altair will pay anything to get his precious daughter back. The peace talks, Zara said. If you take me, thousands of people will die in the war that follows. Not our problem. Another pirate sneered. We just want the money. Captain Rax fired his weapon, hitting one of the pirates, but immediately 3 more jumped on him. Zara found herself grabbed by 2 strong aliens who started dragging her toward their ship. That's when everything changed. A shadow dropped from the ceiling beams above them. It moved so fast that at first Zara thought it might be some kind of machine. But no machine could fight like this. The figure was tall and muscular, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to absorb light. His face was partially covered by a mask, but she could see intense gray eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. In his hands were weapons she had never seen before. Part energy blaster and part ancient sword, the mysterious fighter moved through the pirates like he was dancing. Every movement was perfect, every strike exactly where it needed to be. He didn't kill anyone, but within seconds, half the pirates were on the ground groaning in pain. Run, he shouted to Zara in a voice that sent shivers down her spine. But she couldn't run. She was frozen, watching this incredible warrior fight like he had been born for battle. There was something familiar about him, something that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. The pirate leader roared in anger and charged at the warrior. With all 4 arms swinging massive clubs, the mysterious fighter waited until the last second, then spun away and struck with movements so fluid they looked like art. In less than 2 minutes, all the pirates were either unconscious or running away as fast as they could. The warrior stood in the middle of the corridor, not even breathing hard. Are you hurt? He asked, walking towards Zara. She shook her head, unable to speak. Up close, she could see that his gray eyes held depths of sadness and wisdom that seemed far older than his young face. There was a long scar across his left cheek, and his hands showed the calluses of someone who had been fighting his whole life. Who are you? She finally managed to ask. People call me Kane, he said simply. I was in the area when I heard the commotion. Captain Rax struggled to his feet, looking embarrassed and amazed at the same time. How did you do that? I've never seen anyone fight like that. Kane didn't answer. Instead, he was staring at Zara, with an expression she couldn't read. She found herself staring back, feeling like she was looking into a mirror that showed her something she had never seen before. You're the princess from Andromeda Prime, he said. It wasn't a question, yes. She replied, I'm here for peace talks with the mining colonies. Kane's expression darkened. Those talks are a trap. The mining representatives never planned to negotiate. They were paid to lure you here. What? That's impossible, Captain Rax protested. Is it? Kane asked. How else did the pirates know exactly when and where to find you? Zara felt her heart sink. If Kane was right, then everything she had hoped to accomplish was ruined. Worse, it meant someone wanted her captured or dead. Why? Should we trust you? Captain Rax demanded. Kane looked at him, then back at Zara. Because 3 hours ago, I had a dream about a golden-eyed princess in danger. I've never had prophetic dreams before in my life, but something told me I needed to be here. In this exact spot, at this exact time, Zara gasped. She had been having strange dreams too. Dreams about a warrior in the darkness coming to save her people. Dreams that felt more real than her waking life. You felt it too, Kane said, seeing her expression. The pull, the certainty that this meeting was meant to happen. She nodded slowly. All my life, I've been able to sense things, but nothing has ever felt as strong as this. Kane stepped closer, and she could smell something like starlight and steel on his clothes. There are forces at work here bigger than either of us understands. But right now, we need to get you somewhere safe. I can't leave. Zara said, even if the talks are a trap, I have to try. Too many lives are at stake. Kane studied her face for a long moment. You really mean that? You're willing to risk everything for people you've never met. That's what being a leader means, she replied. Something shifted in Kane's expression. Then I guess I'm going with you. You don't owe me anything, Zara said. You already saved my life. Maybe Kane said quietly, or maybe saving you was just the beginning. As they stood there in the dim corridor of Station Epsilon, surrounded by the aftermath of battle, both Zara and Kane felt the weight of destiny settling around them like a cloak. Neither understood what was happening, but both knew their lives had just changed forever. The ancient prophecy was beginning to unfold, and the warrior had indeed met the princess under foreign stars. The peace talks were a disaster from the very first minute. Zara sat across from 3 mining colony leaders in a grimy conference room that smelled like old metal and broken dreams. Kane stood guard by the door, his eyes constantly scanning for trouble. "Princess," said the lead negotiator, a woman named Commander Chen with dirt under her fingernails and anger in her voice. "You come here with your fancy ship and your pretty clothes, talking about peace. But where were you when our children were dying from lack of medical supplies?" Zara leaned forward, her heart heavy with guilt. "You're right, my people failed. We treated you like servants instead of partners. I'm here to change that." The second negotiator, an older man with scars covering his arms, laughed bitterly. "Change? You want us to trust the same royal family that left us to die in these asteroid fields? I want you to give me a chance to prove that things can be different," Zara replied. But before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station, red lights flashed, and a voice over the speakers announced that the station was under attack. Kane immediately moved to Zara's side. "We need to go now." Through the conference room windows, they could see explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Ships were firing at each other in a chaotic battle that made no sense. "Who's attacking?" Commander Chen demanded. Kane's face was grim. "Ships with Andromedan markings. But they're not from your father's fleet," he told Zara. "I've seen those designs before." "That's impossible," Captain Rax said over the communication device. "All our ships are accounted for." But Zara felt a cold fear growing in her stomach. She remembered the worried conversations her father had with his advisors, the ones they thought she couldn't hear. There had been rumors of nobles who disagreed with the king's peaceful policies. The station shook violently as something exploded. Nearby, the mining colony leaders looked at each other with expressions of betrayal and rage. "This is your doing," Commander Chen accused Zara. "You brought us here to destroy us." "No," Zara protested. "I had nothing to do with this." Kane stepped between them. "The princess is telling the truth. These attackers want her dead as much as they want you gone. We're all targets now." Another explosion rocked the station, and part of the ceiling came crashing down. Kane grabbed Zara and pulled her away just as a huge piece of metal fell where she had been standing. "The docking bays are compromised," Captain Rax's voice crackled through the communicator. "Princess, I'm going to try to reach you, but there are enemy fighters everywhere." "Don't risk it," Zara replied. "We'll find another way." Commander Chen wiped blood from a cut on her forehead. "There's no other way. We're trapped." Kane looked thoughtful. "Maybe not. I know these old stations. There are maintenance tunnels that connect to the mining ships. If we can reach them, we might be able to escape." "And go where?" the older negotiator asked. "They'll just hunt us down." "There's a place," Kane said quietly, "hidden deep in the asteroid belt. The miners call it Haven Rock. It's where people go when they have nowhere else to run." Commander Chen stared at him. "How do you know about Haven Rock? That place is secret." Kane met her eyes. "Because I grew up there." The revelation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Zara looked at Kane with new understanding. He wasn't just some wandering warrior. He was one of them, one of the mining colony people her family had abandoned. "You're a miner," she said softly. "Was," Kane replied, "a long time ago." There was no time for more questions. The attackers had breached the station's hull, and armed soldiers were moving through the corridors. Kane led them through a hidden panel into the maintenance tunnels, a maze of narrow passages that ran throughout the station's skeleton. As they crawled through the tight spaces, Kane told them his story. "I don't remember much about my early childhood. The miners found me in a crashed ship when I was maybe 5 years old. No memory of where I came from or who my parents were." Zara felt her heart racing as she listened. There was something about his story that triggered memories of the old prophecies. Stories about lost princes and forgotten kingdoms. The miners raised me, Kane continued. Taught me to fight, to survive, to fix things with my hands. But I always felt different, like I didn't quite belong anywhere. They reached a junction where multiple tunnels met. Kane stopped and listened carefully to the sounds of battle echoing through the station. "Why did you leave?" Commander Chen asked. Kane was quiet for a moment. "Because I started having dreams, visions of things that hadn't happened yet." The other miners thought I was going crazy. Eventually, I thought so too. Zara reached out and touched his arm. "You're not crazy. I have the same gift." Kane turned to look at her, and in the dim light of the tunnel, she saw recognition in his eyes. "That's why I knew to be here today. I've been dreaming about you for months." "This is all very touching," the older negotiator interrupted, "but we need to keep moving." I can hear soldiers getting closer. They crawled through more tunnels until they reached a maintenance bay where several small mining ships were docked. But as they prepared to make their escape, Kane suddenly stopped. "Something's wrong," he said. "This is too easy." Zara closed her eyes and reached out with her psychic abilities. Immediately, she felt the presence of hostile minds waiting for them. "It's a trap," she whispered. Before anyone could react, the bay doors exploded inward. Soldiers in dark armor poured in, surrounding them completely. These weren't pirates or random attackers. They moved with military precision and carried weapons that Zara recognized as advanced Andromedian technology. The leader of the soldiers removed his helmet, revealing a face that made Zara's blood run cold. It was Duke Voss, one of her father's oldest advisors and a man she had trusted since childhood. "Hello, Princess," he said with a smile that held no warmth. "I'm sorry it had to come to this, Duke Voss." Zara breathed. "You're behind all this?" "Your father is weak," the Duke replied. "He would give away our empire to make peace with rebels and outcasts. Some of us believe Andromeda Prime deserves stronger leadership." Kane stepped protectively in front of Zara. "And you think starting a war will make you strong?" Duke Voss looked at Kane with interest. "Ah, the mysterious warrior. Do you have any idea who you really are, boy?" Kane's hand moved to his weapon. "I know I'm someone who doesn't like bullies." The Duke laughed. "You're much more than that. But we'll discuss your heritage later. Right now, we have more pressing matters." He gestured to the soldiers, who raised their weapons. "Princess Zara, you're coming with us. Your new friends here are unfortunately expendable." But as the soldiers prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. Zara and Kane looked at each other, and suddenly their minds connected in a way that neither had ever experienced before. Time seemed to slow down as their psychic abilities combined and amplified together. They could sense every soldier's position, every weapon's targeting system, every possible escape route, and in that moment of perfect unity, they discovered they were far more powerful together than either had ever been alone. The real adventure was just beginning. When Zara and Kane's minds connected, everything changed in an instant. The world around them slowed to a crawl, and they could feel each other's thoughts as clearly as their own. Together, their psychic abilities created something neither had ever imagined possible. "Move left," Zara's voice whispered in Kane's mind without her lips moving. "Duck now," Kane's thoughts replied, and they both dropped to the ground just as energy blasts flew over their heads. The soldiers firing at them suddenly found their weapons jamming. Their targeting systems went haywire. Some of them stumbled, as if they had lost their balance for no reason. Duke Voss stared in shock as his perfectly planned ambush fell apart. "Impossible," he breathed. The legends were true. Kane and Zara moved as if they shared one body. They rolled behind cover, helping Commander Chen and the other miners escape through a service hatch. Their combined abilities allowed them to sense every enemy movement and counter it perfectly. But their newfound power was exhausting. After just a few minutes, both of them were breathing hard and feeling dizzy. "We can't keep this up," Kane gasped as they ran through another maintenance tunnel. "I know," Zara replied. "But did you feel what happened? It was like we became one person." They emerged into a storage area filled with old mining equipment. Commander Chen was waiting for them with the other miners, all looking amazed and terrified. "What just happened back there?" she demanded. I've never seen anything like that. Before Zara could answer, Duke Voss's voice echoed through the stations. Communication system. Princess Zara, there's no point in running. We control the entire station now. Surrender, and your friends won't be harmed. Kane laughed bitterly. He's lying. I can sense it even from here. He never planned to let any of us live. The older miner stepped forward. There's something you all need to know. Haven Rock isn't just a hiding place. It's where we keep the old records, the ones that go back centuries. There are stories there about people like you too. What kind of stories? Zara asked. Stories about the lost kingdom of Stellaris and the royal family that disappeared when their world was destroyed. Stories about a prince who would return. When the galaxy needed him most, Kane went very still. What are you saying? Commander Chen pulled out a small device and showed them a holographic image. It was an ancient royal crest, two intertwined stars surrounded by a crown. This symbol was carved into the ship where the miners found you as a child. We always wondered what it meant. Zara stared at the image, her heart pounding. She had seen that symbol before in the oldest books in her father's library. Stellaris had been Andromeda Prime's greatest ally before it was destroyed in a war. That happened long before she was born. Kane, she whispered, if this is true, then you're not just a miner. You're Prince Kale of Stellaris, the lost heir that everyone thought was dead. Kane shook his head. That's impossible. I'm nobody special. I'm just a fighter who grew up fixing mining equipment. But even as he said it, memories were starting to surface. Flashes of a beautiful world with silver cities and floating gardens. A woman with kind eyes singing him to sleep. A man with strong hands teaching him to be brave. The prophecies spoke of two royal bloodlines uniting, Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. A princess of Andromeda and a prince of Stellaris, coming together to bring peace to the galaxy. Their moment of revelation was interrupted by explosions echoing through the station. Duke Voss and his soldiers were getting closer. We need to reach Haven Rock, Commander Chen said. There are things there that will prove the truth about Kane's identity, and maybe we'll find weapons that can help us fight back. They managed to reach the mining ship bay through a series of hidden passages. Commander Chen's ship was old and battered, but it was fast and built for navigating asteroid fields. As they flew away from the station, Kane stared out at the stars and tried to process everything he had learned. If I really am this lost prince, then that means my entire world is gone. My people, my family, everything. Zara took his hand. Not everything. You're still here. And maybe that's what matters. The journey to Haven Rock took several hours through a maze of asteroids and hidden passages. Kane found himself remembering more and more as they traveled. The sound of his mother's voice, the smell of flowers from the royal gardens, the feeling of being loved and protected. When they finally arrived at Haven Rock, Kane was amazed to discover it wasn't just a hiding place. It was a small city built inside a hollow asteroid, with thousands of miners and their families living. There, they had created something beautiful in the darkness of space. The mining elders were waiting for them when they docked. They led Kane to a chamber deep in the rock where they had preserved everything from his crashed ship. There were royal clothes sized for a small child, toys that had belonged to Stellaris nobility, and most importantly, a data crystal that contained his family's history. When Kane touched the crystal, memories flooded back like a dam breaking. He remembered his real name, his parents' faces, and the terrible day when their world was attacked. His parents had put him in an escape pod just before their palace was destroyed, hoping he would survive even if they couldn't. Duke Voss knew, Kane said, his voice filled with anger. He knew who I was all along. That's why he set this trap, Commander. Chen nodded. The Duke has been searching for you for years. With the rightful heir of Stellaris under his control, he could claim both kingdoms. Zara felt sick as she realized the scope of Duke Voss' plan. He wants to use you as a puppet ruler. Make it look like our kingdoms are united under his control. But their planning was interrupted by urgent alarms. Ships were approaching Haven Rock, and they weren't friendly. How did they find us? The older miner asked. Kane's face was grim. Because I've been an idiot. The dreams, the visions, the way I always knew where to go. It wasn't just psychic ability. Duke Voss has been tracking me somehow, probably since I was a child. Through the asteroid's viewing portals, they could see a massive fleet of warships surrounding Haven Rock. Duke Voss's voice came over the communication system. Prince Kale of Stellaris, I know you can hear me. You have something that belongs to me. Surrender now, and I might allow some of these miners to live. Kane looked at Zara, and she saw determination burning in his eyes. I won't let him hurt these people because of me, and I won't let him destroy everything our families built, Zara replied. They joined hands, and once again their minds connected. But this time, instead of just sharing their abilities, they began to understand something much bigger. The connection between them wasn't just about their psychic powers. It was about the bond between their two kingdoms. A bond that had been broken when Stellaris fell but was now being restored. The prophecy. Zara whispered, it wasn't just about us finding each other. It was about healing the wound that was left when your world was destroyed. Kane nodded. Our kingdoms were meant to be united, not through conquest, but through understanding. Outside, Duke Voss was preparing his final attack. He had no idea that inside Haven Rock, two young royals were discovering powers that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. The real battle was about to begin, and this time, Kane and Zara would fight not just for their own lives, but for the future of everyone they loved. The battle for Haven Rock began at dawn, though in the darkness of space. Dawn was just a word that meant hope was running out. Duke Voss's warships surrounded the asteroid like hungry wolves, their weapons charging with deadly light. Inside Haven Rock, Zara and Kane stood in the command center with Commander Chen and the mining elders. Everyone looked scared, but no one was talking about surrender. We have maybe 20 old mining ships against his entire fleet, Commander Chen said grimly. The math isn't good. Kane looked at the tactical display showing all the enemy ships. Then we don't fight with math. We fight with something he doesn't understand. Zara knew what he meant. Their connection, their combined abilities, had grown stronger since they learned the truth about Kane's identity. When they touched hands now, they could feel not just each other's thoughts, but something much bigger. The memory of the great kingdoms that had once been allies. There's something else, said Elder Tam, the oldest miner on Haven Rock. He brought out an ancient device that looked like it was made of crystal and starlight. This was in Kane's escape pod when we found him. We never knew what it was. The moment Kane touched the device, it began to glow. Images appeared in the air around them, showing the history of Stellaris in Andromeda Prime. They saw the two kingdoms working together, sharing technology and knowledge, protecting each other from threats that came from the dark spaces between stars. It's a unity crystal, Zara breathed. My grandmother told me stories about them. When two kingdoms formed an alliance, they would create these to bind their fates together. Kane felt warmth spreading through his hands as he held the crystal. What does it do? It amplifies the connection between royal bloodlines, Elder Tam explained. But the old stories say it only works when both kingdoms face their greatest threat, outside. Duke Voss was losing patience. His voice crackled over the communication system again. You have 1 minute to surrender, or I start destroying sections of the asteroid. The children's quarters seemed like a good place to begin. Zara felt rage burning in her chest. He wouldn't dare. He would, Kane said quietly. I can sense his mind from here. He's already given the order. The first explosion shook Haven Rock like an earthquake. Emergency alarms screamed as atmosphere began leaking from the damaged section. Families with children were being evacuated to the deeper levels, but everyone knew they couldn't survive many more hits like that. That's it, Kane said, his voice filled with determination. I'm going out there. Not alone, Zara replied, taking his hand. We do this together. Commander Chen stared at them. Do what? You can't fight an entire fleet with 2 small ships. We're not going to fight them, Zara said. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Kane and Zara walked to the docking bay, still holding the unity crystal between their joined hands. With each step, their connection grew stronger. They could feel the hopes and fears of every person on Haven Rock. They could sense the confusion and doubt among Duke Voss's soldiers. most of whom had no idea why they were attacking innocent miners. They boarded Commander Chen's fastest ship, a sleek vessel built for navigating dangerous asteroid fields. As they flew out from Haven Rock, Duke Voss's flagship immediately targeted them. Well, the Duke's voice came over the radio. The royal couple comes to surrender at last. We're not here to surrender, Kane replied. We're here to end. This Duke Voss laughed. 2 children against my entire fleet. I think not. But as Kane and Zara sat side by side in the ship's cockpit, something extraordinary began to happen. The Unity crystal started glowing brighter, and their psychic connection expanded beyond anything they had experienced before. Suddenly, they weren't just Kane and Zara anymore. They were the living memory of the great kingdoms. They were every act of friendship and cooperation between Stellaris and Andromeda Prime. They were proof that unity was stronger than conquest. The glow from the crystal began to spread, surrounding their ship in light that was visible even in the vacuum of space, and that light carried a message that reached every mind in Duke Voss's fleet. The soldiers saw visions of what their kingdoms could become if they worked together. Instead of fighting, they saw cities where children from different worlds played together. They saw scientific discoveries that could only happen when people shared their knowledge freely. They saw a future where no one had to choose between loyalty and doing what was right. What's happening? Duke Voss demanded as his soldiers began to hesitate. Fire. That's an order. But his weapons officers were staring at their screens in wonder. The targeting systems couldn't lock onto Kane and Zara's ship anymore. Every time they tried, they saw images of the children on Haven Rock. The families who would be hurt if the fighting continued. Sir, one of his officers said quietly, maybe we should reconsider this attack. You dare question me, Duke Voss roared, but it was too late. The Unity Crystal's influence was spreading through his entire fleet. Soldiers were remembering why they had joined the military in the first place, to protect people, not to serve the ambitions of power-hungry nobles. Kane and Zara felt the change happening. Through their connection, they could sense doubt replacing certainty, compassion replacing anger. They were showing everyone that there was another way. It's working, Zara whispered. But Duke Voss wasn't finished. In his rage and desperation, he activated a weapon that had been hidden on his flagship. It was ancient technology, something left over from the war that had destroyed Stellaris. A weapon designed to tear apart the fabric of space itself. If I can't rule both kingdoms, he snarled, then there won't be any kingdoms left. The weapon charged with a sound like reality screaming. Kane and Zara felt the terrible power building, a force that could destroy not just Haven Rock, but everything. Within several star systems, we have to stop it, Kane said. Together, Zara agreed. They placed their hands on the Unity Crystal and opened their minds completely to each other. The connection that had been growing between them since they first met suddenly exploded into something that touched every living being in the area. The light from the crystal became a bridge between hearts and minds. Duke Voss's soldiers felt the love that Zara had for her people. The miners felt Kane's determination to protect the innocent. Everyone experienced the deep bond between two souls who had found each other across the darkness of space. And in that moment of perfect unity, the ancient weapon simply stopped. It couldn't function in the presence of such pure connection between living beings. The technology that was designed to destroy was overwhelmed by the power of two people who chose love over fear. Duke Voss stared at his dead weapon in disbelief. Impossible. The ancient texts said nothing could stop it. The ancient texts were wrong, Kane said gently. They were written by people who had forgotten that the greatest power in the universe isn't the ability to destroy, it's the courage to connect with others. One by one, Duke Voss's ships powered down their weapons. His officers placed him under arrest for treason. The soldiers who had been forced to attack Haven Rock instead began offering aid to repair the damage they had caused. Commander Chen's voice came over the radio, filled with amazement. I don't believe what I'm seeing. They're actually helping us. Zara and Kane returned to Haven Rock as heroes, but they felt like something much simpler. They felt like two people who had found their purpose in life. 3 months later, they stood together in the Great Hall of Andromeda Prime, speaking to representatives from hundreds of worlds. The Unity Crystal rested on a pedestal between them, its light gentle but constant. Today, we announce not just the marriage of two people, Xeris said to the gathered crowd, but the rebirth of an alliance that will bring peace to our galaxy. Kane nodded. Stellaris is gone, but its spirit lives on in every act of cooperation, every hand extended in friendship, every choice to build instead of destroy. As they spoke the ancient words that would bind their lives together, the Unity Crystal glowed brighter, and throughout the galaxy, people felt a change in the very fabric of space. The wound left by Stellaris' destruction finally began to heal. King Altair, watching his daughter with tears of joy in his eyes, whispered the final words of the old prophecy, and peace shall reign among the scattered children of the cosmos. The alien princess had indeed faced the warrior, and in learning he was her chosen life partner, she had discovered something even more important. Sometimes the greatest battles are won not through fighting, but through the courage to love completely and trust absolutely. Their story would be told for generations, a reminder that even in the darkest times, two hearts united by destiny could bring light to the entire universe.